Once upon a time, there was a storyteller named Clara. And this is her tale. It's a revelation I never anticipated sharing. Yet here I am, acknowledging the challenge of admitting that the heart often chooses paths that the mind struggles to comprehend. This connection not only introduced anguish but also unveiled an emotional chasm that I believed I could never flee from. What began as a light-hearted jest slowly evolved into a perilous and intricate situation. My existence has consistently defied ordinary expectations. I have always been the defiant one in my family. The one who consistently failed to meet my father's strict expectations. A man whose strictness knew no limits and who sought to dominate every aspect of my life. When he proposed that I spend the summer at my Uncle Elliot's house, I envisioned it as an opportunity to escape the relentless criticism and discover some tranquility for myself. Elliot has consistently captivated me. Not just with his tall, angular features but also with his enigmatic, free-spirited nature. While most men his age were settled with families, he was a freedom-loving man. A true adventurer. Since I was little, every time he came to visit during the holidays, he always brought with him interesting stories and strange gifts from all over. But this time was different. I was no longer the naive girl at the age of 19. I began to look at him with a completely different eye. As soon as I arrived at his apartment in the heart of the city, the atmosphere seemed to have changed. At first I thought it was just the excitement of being temporarily away from the pressures of my father. But then I realized that my feelings for him were more than just admiration. His eyes contained something unpredictable. As if he was suppressing a deep emotion every time he looked at me, there was curiosity mixed with a longing that I couldn't explain. That afternoon as we walked around the park near our house, the tension between us was palpable. It wasn't the uncomfortable tension that involves fighting, but a gentle but powerful tension like an electric current running quietly beneath the surface. Elliot is usually so quiet that day. Why are you so quiet? I asked. Trying to break the silence with a smile, he turned to look at me, and for a moment I felt like I could see through his thoughts. Though he quickly looked away. Nothing, I'm just tired. But his voice was not convincing from then on. The tension between us became more apparent. We began to have more intimate moments, light touches, and long conversations, things that seemed harmless, but I could feel the strong attraction behind them. One evening after dinner, we settled into the living room as we often did. He poured another glass of wine. But this time, instead of taking his usual seat across from me, he chose to sit right next to me on the sofa. My heart raced. And despite my efforts to act nonchalant about his closeness, my body was fully aware. Then, I felt his hand brush against mine. Just for a fleeting moment. Yet it ignited a spark within me that I couldn't ignore. I turned to him, searching for any indication that it had been an accident. But his expression remained unchanged. We lingered in the stillness of the living room, the tension palpable in the air. From that day forward, the relationship between Elliot and me grew increasingly ambiguous. Each stroll through the park or moment spent together in the living room was filled with furtive glances and lingering, awkward touches that seemed to stretch on longer than they should. I felt as though I was being swept into a whirlwind of emotions that I couldn't control. My heart raced whenever he was near. And I started to sense that I was losing my sense of direction. One afternoon, as we strolled through the park, the sky unexpectedly opened up, drenching us in rain. With no time to return home, we hurriedly sought refuge in the small greenhouse, a place Elliot often frequented to read or stash his belongings. We were both soaked by the time we entered. And Elliot, with a gentle gesture, handed me a towel to dry my hair in the soft, dim light. When our eyes met, an intense attraction sparked between us. A feeling so profound that words fell short. It was as if he was on the brink of surrendering to the undeniable connection that pulsed in the air around us. Elliot moved in closer. And before I had a chance to process it, his lips met mine, soft yet brimming with longing. The kiss ignited in the middle of the pouring rain and the stillness enveloping us. In that moment, I experienced an unexpected depth of affection from a man who, by all accounts, should have elicited nothing extraordinary from me. Elliot embraced me firmly. And within his hold, I sensed that I had discovered a refuge that was both secure and thrilling. From that point forward, we cherished those secret moments, both in the greenhouse and in other concealed spots. In every moment spent within the house, Elliot and I were drawn together, transcending boundaries and surrendering to profound emotions. The intensity of my emotions for Elliot led to a blurring of the boundaries between right and wrong. However, as summer faded away, the stark truth hit me: my father was on his way to take me home. Elliot and I understood that evading the truth was not a sustainable option. The anxiety of potential discovery loomed over me. Yet each time I attempted to take a firm stand, I found myself effortlessly drawn back by the warmth of his gaze and the tenderness of his gestures. At last, the moment arrived when my father came to collect me. I attempted to maintain my distance from Elliot. Yet the tension that hung between us was so intense that even my father sensed something amiss. That evening, once my father had settled in for the night, I resolved to face Elliot one final time. He was there in the living room, seated silently before the window that framed the city beyond. The nightlight cast a glow on his face, revealing a look of deep thought and inner turmoil. "This has to stop, Elliot," I said, my gaze fixed elsewhere, unable to meet his eyes. He paused, a moment of silence enveloping him, before releasing a soft sigh. "I understand, Clara." I had a feeling from the start that this would not conclude positively. We exchanged a glance, and in that fleeting moment, I understood it would be the final time. The next morning, I would depart, burdened by the tangled memories and emotions of a relationship that was both misguided and indelible. The following morning, I rose early and quietly gathered my belongings, the soft glow filtering through the window. As the light poured into the room, it awakened a profound sorrow within me. I realized that today marked my final day in Elliot's house, a place that now resonated with countless memories, both cherished and painful. As I exited the room, I found Elliot in the hallway, his gaze a mixture of sorrow and tranquility. We exchanged no words, our gazes locked in a heavy silence, each moment steeped in pain, as if language itself had lost its significance. In this moment of separation, Elliot stepped closer to me, placing a hand on my shoulder, as if to convey that he understood all the emotions flooding my heart. "Clara," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, "I hope you find peace." I remained silent, merely nodding slightly as I fought to contain the tears that were on the verge of spilling after we shared one last embrace. I turned away, my footsteps heavy as I left the house that had become so familiar. On the car ride home with my father, I told myself I had to be decisive, to forget Elliot and everything that had happened. But it was hard to do that when the memories kept flooding back, when everything in me was still as vivid as yesterday. Those secret moments haunted my mind, causing deep torment mixed with an inexplicable longing. When I returned home, I tried to slip back into normal life. My father had no idea what had transpired, but gradually he noticed the changes in me. He often asked questions, worried when he saw that I seemed quieter, less smiling, and less talkative than before. Every time I heard my father's words of concern, I felt more guilty and humiliated, for I had broken every moral code I had ever been taught. As time went by, I believed I would slowly let go of Elliot and the memories that lingered. However, one morning, a friend reached out to inform me that Elliot had been in an accident during a trip. Though it wasn't too serious, The news of his hospitalization made my heart ache. I wrestled with myself, convincing myself that I should not care and that I should not miss him any longer. However, the feelings lingered deep within my heart, akin to an unhealed wound. One day, I resolved to write him a letter, not anticipating a response, but simply to release the emotions that had burdened my heart for far too long. In that letter, I poured out everything I had kept inside, my feelings, my longing, and the relentless torment that had consumed me. I reminded myself that putting those thoughts into words was a means to bring closure to this sorrowful chapter. A few weeks later, I received a reply from Elliot. In his letter, he shared his struggles in overcoming everything, expressing that he felt as guilty as I did. However, he ultimately came to the conclusion that life must continue. He mentioned that although we had lost our way, he hoped we could both discover a new path to become better and stronger individuals after this mistake. Elliot's letter made me realize that sometimes what we desire is not always what is truly beneficial. We erred and overstepped limits that should have remained intact. And now it is time to face the repercussions. Over time, I came to understand the importance of self-forgiveness. Even though the journey was challenging, I understood it was essential. Elliot discovered tranquility in his existence. Though our relationship has come to a close, it remains a profound recollection of love, longing, and duty. Reflecting on my past, I recognize my growth. I am no longer the defiant, spontaneous girl I used to be. The challenging experiences deepened my appreciation for loyalty and highlighted the boundaries we must respect. I aspire for my narrative to serve as a beacon for those who feel adrift, illustrating that surrendering can also be a profound expression of love. Life occasionally leads us down paths where feelings and wants overshadow rational thought. My narrative serves as a poignant reminder that regardless of the depth of our love or the intensity of our passion, it is essential to uphold moral boundaries. Instances of vulnerability can lead to painful and enduring repercussions, affecting not just ourselves but also those in our orbit. Letting go of self-blame is essential for progress. Yet mastering your emotions and valuing the right connections hold even greater significance. Keep in mind that sometimes stepping back can be an expression of deeper love and responsibility.